because man's task is to make the earth after the model of heaven. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Man's project is to heavenize the earth. Man is made to transform the world from glory to glory, to take hold of it and break it down and remake it after the image of heaven.
Welcome back to the Reformed Reset. My name is Grant, and joined with me is my beautiful wife, Erica, the weaker vessel.
Hello, everyone.
We are a part of Take Hold Studios. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel right now and share our episode with all of your friends and tell them to come subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Do it
as well. Hit the like button and leave a comment below, because all of those things help us get into that YouTube algorithm. And then we get to, have our video put in front of new listeners and all that good stuff.
Yeah. How long have we been doing podcasting for now?
5.5 years.
5.5 years, guys. There's a whole slew of content that if you have not availed yourself to, you can.
Well,
I don't think it's all on YouTube.
The early years, our audio stuff, when we were not video.
Yeah.
That's just on an external hard drive I'm looking at right now that, that could be re-released. Some of that was good.
Probably be lost. Those were our Baptist days.
Well, actually, only the first couple months. And then we embraced
That's true.
covenant theology. And then it was like the floodgates opened.
That's true.
Then it was long. We had all kinds of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, that's true.
But some of that was pretty good, We even talked about head coverings back then.
Ooh, that's the hot topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
All the cool kids are talking about that. We've got something up our sleeve when it comes to the whole head coverings debate.
Here we do.
We have a special guest hopefully coming on to discuss that soon. So.
It's true. Our first episode ever was the Awakening Reformation podcast, and it was Reformation Day 2017, the 500th year anniversary of Martin Luther nailing the 95 Theses on the castle door in Wittenberg.
Yep.
So 2017. So this October 31st, that'll be 6 years podcasting together.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah. We renamed a couple years ago now.
Two years ago, I think.
Almost 2 years ago.
Ourselves, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, when we went video right before COVID.
Yes, we did.
That was when we went video.
Yep. And started throwing stuff on YouTube right around that time too.
Yeah.
Today we're done with our series.
Yep.
We don't know what we're doing next. But so today we thought let's just do a one-off. One of our popular series was our Deep Weird series that we did last fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to do another just sort of rando Deep Weird episode today.
Yeah. So you're gonna help fill in gaps and stuff here with details and stories and stuff. But one of the things Eric and I do a lot is watch true crime.
Yeah.
And as
listen to a lot of true crime.
Yeah. A lot of podcasting, a lot of documentaries, and just very interesting. One of the reasons why it's super interesting to us is because we do hold to theonomy.
Yep.
And so we're always interested to see how the law is carried out in our country or even other countries and how that compares to God's law.
Well, and how the carrying out of God's law or the lack thereof impacts a culture and a society.
Yeah, that's true.
It's super interesting.
Or even like certain situations, like certain cases that we watch and we think, wow, look, that problem would have been taken care of had they just followed God's law in this way or whatever.
Right. What was the name of the documentary we watched? It wasn't even a documentary. It was on 2020. There was
Kill or Be Killed?
Yeah, that was the name of the episode, Kill or Be Killed.
Is that what you're talking about or a different one?
Yeah, but what was the name of the girl? Do you remember her name?
Give me a sec.
It was a case from Poughkeepsie, New York.
Yep.
What was her name? Anyway, there's this case that we watched. It was a 2020 episode last night where this woman was cohabitating with a man that she knew for several years.
Had kids with him.
She had 2 children with him. Married. They were not married. And she ended up murdering him and she was convicted of killing him while he was asleep. The evidence did suggest that. And then her whole defense was basically that he was abusing her
for years.
I mean, at least 5 or 6 years, I think she said. And there was actual evidence. There was evidence that he had abused her. But then she was in therapy. Her therapist knew about it, had tried to get her out of the situation.
Yep. Try to get her to report it.
She actually literally had like a police report on her lap while she was in a police station at one point, and they just needed her to press charges so they could arrest the guy. She wouldn't do it.
She didn't sign it.
She wouldn't sign it. So there's like all this stuff. It was a very strange case. She ended up getting like 25 years to life, and then
there was a recent law passed
by stupid Governor Cuomo.
By dumb Cuomo.
In New York.
That if a crime could be linked to some other like secondary cause, such as
like a domestic violence
or something, was his law specifically tied to domestic abuse?
I think it was like a domestic abuse law where you ended up, it was essentially so that if you were being abused and you had to kill your abuser in self-defense, you could get no more than 5 years behind bars.
Basically, it was like if you were being abused for however amount of time, whatever, but then you ended up, not even like it caused you to commit a crime or you happened to in the moment do something or whatever. Right. It was just that you commit a crime.
It just shaped you in some sort of way.
Well, that abuse shaped you in some way, and so you're essentially a victim of your environment. Yeah. It's a very humanist, evolutionary worldview that produces that kind of legislation. Your
Me Too movement.
Your sentence, and then couple that with the Me Too movement. The thing was, the max you could get was whatever 10 years.
I think it was 5 years.
Well, she ended up getting 7 or something.
That's true.
But it was like
should be released next year, but it was like drastically reduced. Yeah. So anyway, we were just talking about this case after we watched that special yesterday, and one of my very favorite cases that I just will always find incredibly fascinating is the Mara Murray case. Yeah. For those of you who don't listen to true crime, it's a story about a 23-year-old girl who
West Point dropout.
Yeah, she was a West Point dropout's a nice way of putting it. She was asked to leave because she stole from Fort Knox.
She was UCMJ'd out of there.
Yeah, and then she went into nursing school at UMass, and essentially she just went missing one day. There's all kinds of crazy things that happened to her, like the day and the week before she went missing. Her father visited her on the school campus the weekend before she went missing to help find a new vehicle for her because apparently her vehicle wasn't working properly. Right. So her dad, who was divorced from her mom at the time, drove to help find her a new car. They couldn't find a car that weekend. Yeah. So they, I guess the dad was like, well, I'll come back.
Hang out that night.
I'll come back next weekend. We'll find you something. So he took Mara and one of her close girlfriends out to the liquor store to buy a bunch of booze and then out to dinner. And then the girls dropped him off at his hotel room. They went out partying that night at another friend's dorm party. And then she ends up getting into a car accident after that party on her way to go back to the hotel in the middle of the night. She wrecks her dad's car. Kind of ironic. And then there's so many details.
She leave the car?
No. She files a police report and everything, I think. Or the police shows up at the scene. Anyway, so there's all this kind of crazy flurry of events that happen. And then within a few days after all that mess, her dad goes back to where he's from, and then she packs up her stuff out of her dorm, packs them into her vehicle.
She's going on a vacation or something,
isn't working that well, and tells her supervisor at the college that she was working
something
for,
wrong with her sister.
Something's wrong, there's a family emergency, and I have to take a few days off of work and school. So she packs up her stuff, and she travels about 3 hours north, and she crashes her vehicle on a windy back road in the middle of New Hampshire.
Mountains of New Hampshire.
In the White Mountains. And there were a couple neighbors who saw her crash her vehicle. One of them actually spoke with her, said she wasn't injured. She seemed in her right mind, a little shaken up, but she didn't seem intoxicated or anything like that. And he was pulling in his driveway when he saw it all happen. So he went up to her right away and said, "Are you okay? You know, do you need help? I can call the police and get some help." And she said, "No, I've already called AAA. They'll be here in a little bit." He knew that was a lie because where she was in the mountains, there was no cell phone reception. This was 18 years ago, so cell phone reception was even worse than what it is now.
Right.
And by the time he got back in the house and told his wife about it, the wife called the police. She was already gone. She's missing, and no one's seen her since. Literally within a matter of a few minutes. The
neighbors did say they saw a car pull up, right?
No one...
Is that confirmed?
No one has ever seen a vehicle. No one saw anything besides her standing there 1 minute and like
her
completely gone.
Or whatever.
Yep. But the damage done to the vehicle wasn't even consistent with the crash that happened because it was snowy. It was February, and like so it was. Was
it that she slid out into the?
It was she took well, it's assumed that she took the turn too fast.
Right. She slid into the mountain of snow or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, the snowbank, essentially in the ditch.
Okay.
There's 1,000 more details.
Yeah, and theories. And
because of all of the crazy details surrounding it, she had an affair with her track coach. She had a steady boyfriend who she met during her trouble at West Point. Yeah. Well, actually, no, it wasn't at West Point. He was like a liaison for the legal team when she got in trouble from stealing that makeup at Fort Knox.
Because he was stationed at...
he was in Oklahoma.
Right, Fort Sill.
So, like, there's sort of these love triangles. She was sort of promiscuous. She was outside of her father's purview. I think her dad knew something was up. She was very troubled. She got in trouble. She had packed up a lot of her stuff, almost like... Like,
almost too much. Like you're leaving. Like you're going away.
Yeah.
Running away, almost.
It almost seemed like she was running away.
Yeah.
So very strange. Running away from what? How long was she going to be gone for?
Right.
When they found her vehicle, everything was still left in her vehicle for the most part. That they know is missing. It's hard to know for sure.
Is it... She was drinking though, right? Didn't they find box wine or
They
empty?
found open containers in her vehicle. But the man who spoke to her...
Did not say that she seemed to be... He said
she didn't smell like alcohol and she didn't seem intoxicated.
Yeah. So, all the true crime...
It's just, there's so many details.
If we have any true crime watchers of our podcast right now, they're like...
Yeah.
This is like one of those stories, right? One of the
It's one of those just... Where could she have gone?
Right.
And she was incredibly athletic. She grew up in that area, so she knew the area very well. Did she run away? Was she running from something? Like, if you're in the military world at all, like we were for 10 years, you know that if you cross the wrong people, it can be very dangerous. Was she scared of someone? Was she pregnant?
Yep.
And that brought weird stuff. The track coach that she was involved with was a foreigner. Was there something weird happening there? I mean, we just don't know. But anyway, this is because of all these like true crime cases that involve females.
Yeah.
Grant and I have often talked about like just how weird feminism is and like what it's actually done.
Well, we've watched dozens of stories about the single young adult woman who lives on her own. And dad is either subsidizing that lifestyle. He's paying her rent or he's paying or whatever it is. And maybe even not, but she's 21, 22, 23, young, in school or a nurse or like however she's living on her own. And then it's like there's story after story after story of them being followed home, of them having a boyfriend that goes wrong and then they're killed. Or just, I mean, you name it, it happens. And we're like, would all this occur if we still had a good patriarchy? Yeah, if we had a good patriarchy, would this be such a problem?
Right. If you look up statistics, like crime statistics, it does show that God's ways are just so much better for society.
Right.
And one of the things I always think of is if you cohabitate before you're married, your odds of your odds of being in a domestic situation are through the roof.
Right. It's astronomical.
It's astronomical. Like if you are having sex with and or living with your boyfriend or your girlfriend before you get married,
the chances of domestic abuse are through Yeah.
And yet that is the norm in today's world.
People will say, like, if you didn't
normal.
do that, you're crazy.
Yeah. How could you possibly know who you're marrying?
Yeah.
But then you look at, like, the crime facts and you just think that is the worst thing you could possibly do. It literally is the worst thing if you want to have a happy and successful marriage.
Yeah, we don't like stats unless they support the what we want anyway.
Yep. But, same with murders. Like the majority of murders, I think it's like 70% of murders, the victims are men. They're male victims.
You mean the one being murdered?
Yes.
70% are men?
Are men. So that leaves like 30-ish% that are women.
Mm-hmm.
And
some would say, well, there you go. Women aren't really the victims very often.
But then you look at who is the murderer.
Okay. So
in the cases where the victim is male, more often than not, it's a random murder, meaning like it's a drug situation, it's a gang situation, like something. It's not a personal,
unrelated. Like
it's definitely not related to a romantic connection.
Yeah.
Of female victims that are murdered, the vast majority of them are actually perpetrated by someone who is a romantic interest, or they were involved with romantically in some way, shape, or form.
So this could be the boyfriend, the live-in boyfriend like we're talking about, or it could be
a Tinder date. It could have been like, it didn't have to be like a serious commitment, but it was just something related.
Is included in that like adultery? Like, because there's a lot of that kind of a situation.
Just some sort of like sexual partner, and maybe they didn't even actually have sex, but some sort of romantic partner.
Yeah. Significant other.
So like, I think it's like almost 2 times more likely for a woman to be murdered by someone who they are romantically connected to versus a man, like a male victim. It is crazy.
So how does the patriarchy help here?
Well, you look at,
because the patriarchy is just so evil, so there can't possibly be any way that the patriarchy would help.
And there is evil
women.
Patriarchy. I mean, hello, because you could just as easily look at those stats and be like, yeah, there's some gross men, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, is for every bad man, there's a father who loves their daughter. Mm-hmm. And that father will, I mean, if you have a good dad, right? Even pagan dads who are not godly in any way, shape, or form still love their daughters, generally, and would protect them from someone who wants to do them harm. Right.
Thank God, predominantly, common grace shows itself in fathers who, even if they're not Christians, will do whatever to protect their kids, and more so their daughters.
Right, exactly. So if you think about, this will get us in trouble, because we actually are not opposed to women having an education at all. We think it's great. Women should be
super
educated,
smart.
yes. But in situations wherein fathers are involved and the daughters are living under their father's roof, the odds of any kind of domestic abuse just plummets.
Yeah.
It is virtually non-existent.
Well, it removes vulnerability.
Exactly.
Right? So if the girl is out in the open, the vulnerabilities start multiplying.
She might have a career. She's a 25-year-old nurse, but she's still living in her dad's home. The odds of something shady happening to her, it's virtually non-existent, besides, like a freak accident or something like that.
Well, and even that transition period of a life coming into adulthood, when a woman is usually looking for a mate to start her own family with, if you're following a good patriarchy, then the dad is involved and ensuring to vet and filter out morons, so that way a good man, a good godly man who is going, so then there's a transfer of protection. When is that girl ever in a super vulnerable situation?
So the problem with a lot of all these stats and stuff is that we live in a culture that tells everyone they need to be college educated, which is a whole nother podcast altogether.
Right.
But also that in order to get a good education and to really become mature, what you need to do is you need to go off to college outside of your father's purview, and you just need to live it up. You need to get all your, like, sow all your wild oats while you still can, like, live up, you know, get it all out, because at some point you're going to be shackled down, and, you know, you're going to have to become serious. So until you have to become serious, don't be serious. What that leads to is women being promiscuous, women partying, there's tons of alcohol, there's tons of men, there's tons of vulnerability, and the girl's 1,000 miles away from her father, who can, even if he is trying to be intentional, there's only so much you can do from 1,000 miles away.
Yep.
And I think about all those killings that happened in Idaho last fall.
That was on a college campus, right?
It wasn't a college campus, no, but I think it was like
a dorm house or
it was
or
a sorority house.
Sorority house. Which,
once again, sororities, fraternities, like, it's all bad. But the house was known for partying, and these girls were known for being loose and drunk, and, like, and the parents knew about it, but the parents just assumed, oh, that's what kids do at college. So it's the norm, right? It's normal.
Right.
It's normal to cohabitate. It's normal to party when you're young. It's normal to have wild college party days. Like, that's the normal thing. And then we look at our justice system and we're like, oh, it's so screwed up.
Right.
Like, it is screwed up, but you know what else is screwed up? Like, everything surrounding it.
Yeah. All sorts of other systems.
Yep.
And how we're bringing up people.
Yep.
Because at that point, there should be not a dismissal of responsibility, and then you just hang on to your grade point average as much, you know, or something, barely.
Yeah.
But college years, like, oh, that's a time, you know, what you should be doing is multiplying responsibility. You're an adult now.
Yeah.
You should be adding to your plate as much as possible, preparing for the legacy you're trying to build, right, for your family.
And how many parents are funding the licentious lifestyles of their daughters and their sons, right? Mom and dad are paying for the college experience. Mom and dad are paying the rent. Mom and dad are paying for the classes. Mom and dad are paying for the abortions that need to happen because their daughter got pregnant and she's only a junior.
Right.
Or whatever, right?
We can't throw it all away now.
Right. So there is a bad patriarchy. Like, I'm not denying that. I think that when you zoom in on some of these cases, the fathers are wildly
father
absent.
rule is not the problem.
Right.
Sinful father rule is the problem.
And you can't escape father rule, actually.
True.
In all these cases, like, these women do have fathers that should have been protecting them.
Yeah.
Where were they? We don't know.
Yeah, and their abdication is just as much as a contributing factor.
Yeah.
As anything else.
And that's where, this is kind of sidebar, but the Mara Murray case is super interesting because I do think that her father was a little bit different in that sense.
Okay.
I do think he was way more involved, and hence his presence there the weekend before. And we can get into theories about what I think happened to Mara Murray.
Yeah.
But I actually think her dad is protecting her to this day. I think something shady went down. She's in hiding. She's alive. He knows it, and he is protecting her.
Yeah.
That's just my theory on the whole case. But that could be, I'm not saying it's true, but that could be an example of good patriarchy.
Right.
If that's true, you know?
Yeah. Could you imagine if the public found out where she's at or if she's alive, how bombarded she'd be? Yeah. You know? That would be
if
crazy.
She was pregnant, her child would be turning 18 in the next couple...
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know, the next year or so. And if that's what she was in hiding over, it was her child, trying to protect her child, then she might come out of hiding.
Well, maybe.
Could be.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah. Unless you're a true crime, like, junkie, you probably have no idea what most of these cases really are. And that's fine, because the point of this isn't even the cases in and of themselves, although I find them very interesting.
I think it's just, true crime is one of those things that you can watch and listen to and stuff, and you see over and over again the effects of abdicating fathers,
feminism,
and just what our culture is turning out, and it's
well, and how it affects
throwing these young women to the wolves.
Yeah, and how it actually is affecting the laws that go into place, because you look at like Governor Cuomo's stupid law where he's essentially incentivizing murder. It's
Yeah.
like, you can murder whoever you want, and if you can just prove that they maybe slapped you around a little bit, then, you only get 5 years or so.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Right.
You're like, what are we... This is our grand solution to the problem?
Right.
Just a lighter sentence?
Yeah.
We're gonna incentivize murder and domestic violence. We're just gonna lessen the sentence so that the jails aren't overflowing. That's not justice. That's not what God calls justice, and that shouldn't be something that Christians are super stoked to hear about.
Right. Exactly.
That's my 2 cents on the matter.
Yeah. And again, this young girl would not have been shacking up with some dude like she was.
I could list you 12 cases right now of women who are in shady situations who were not being watched by their father.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. And a lot of times they're like, between 16 and 30. Like, that is the biggest chunk of true crime cases for women, is just that age bracket. There are the one-offs where they're older women or whatever, but by and large, it's young women. And that's who serial killers go after. Guys like Ted Bundy, right? Who they have a type, they're young women who are attractive and vulnerable and naive, and by and large, the fathers are not watching them.
Like you said, the patriarchy is inescapable. And a lot of times these young women are looking for a husband.
Yep.
They're looking for a man to watch over them, to protect them.
Yep.
And to be that good patriarch for them.
Yep.
Deep down, that is actually what women want. So that is why they give in or stay with morons for so long. Because deep down they still want...
And they're maternal, right? Most good women are maternal.
Sure, yeah.
And so they look at a man who just needs to be shaped and refined a little bit, which most men do.
And I think, I'm here. I'm here for the task.
That's my job, right? Like, I'm going to be his helpmate. I'm going to step into that role, and we're going to build a life together. And he's got a little, a few rough edges, but we can work through that.
Right.
And then they end up murdered.
Is that always, that I'm going to fix him? Because I know that's a huge, topic for women a lot of times. Is that probably always bad to be thinking that way at all? Because there is some sort of helpmate maternal instinct with women.
Yeah, I don't think it's always wrong. I think
to be their mommy is not good.
Right. Well, I mean, I cook for you, I clean for you, I do your laundry. These are, you could say, am I your mommy? No, I'm your helpmate.
What about, so personal character?
Were there sharp edges that I feel like the Lord has used me to polish off of your personality? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And
I think you've done that for me too, right? Because that's what marriage is you both are becoming sanctified. And
True.
If you go into a marriage thinking, I'm going to change this person, that's terrible. But you should also go into the marriage knowing God's going to sanctify you, and that is a huge purpose of marriage. So you will change that person, and that person will change you.
Yeah.
So is it for the good or for the bad?
Yeah. Okay, good.
But you also, if there's a woman out there who was like, well, I'm gonna change Ted Bundy.
Right. I'm gonna go look at who's getting released from prison this week, and then that guy,
he's dead, so
I'll marry him. Well, yeah, but someone else, right? Because my mission is to,
I have to sanctify him.
Yeah.
And it's but you also have to realize that he's going to change you, right? It goes both ways.
Yeah, there you go. That's good.
So it's not like you're just going to change him, but he's going to have no influence over you. So if he's actually immoral, then that immorality is going to rub off on you.
It is going to. Yeah.
Just like with friends. We all know that you can be friends with someone who's not a Christian with the intention of trying to influence them and witness to them and whatever.
But it only goes so far.
But you can only get so close because you know that they will affect you in your walk with the Lord too if you're not very careful.
Right.
So,
yeah. So that gets applied in relationships. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. They will affect you too.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's helpful as you guys,
Just a very interesting observation that we've made while watching true crime.
Right.
This idea of it's so common that we literally will say, oh, it's just another young woman.
We always talk about how fatherlessness.
Another young woman.
Yeah. Yeah. Taken advantage of because, what was going to stop them? That's the thing too, is it's
right.
There was nothing that was going to stop. you know?
Well, and if you're cohabitating before you're married, then literally there's like no one watching over you. This person is like, you are so vulnerable to them.
Mm-hmm.
They have complete access.
Well, we've even said women, or we've talked about this stuff. Even some women are like, "Oh, I take self-defense classes, or I have a gun, or whatever," and we're like,
fine,
that's fine. But again, how far is that really going to go? Because a guy is just going to be a lot stronger than you,
right?
Typically, so unless you're like juicing it and lifting weights like crazy, you're not going to be stronger than that guy. So you may know some moves or whatever, but a guy who has a seared conscience and has adrenaline pumping through him, he's going to be really strong.
Yep.
So don't trust in these, things like that.
Right.
I'll have a gun in my purse. Okay, well, that's good. That might help in some situations.
Right.
Not saying don't do any of that stuff.
And we understand that there are extenuating circumstances where, like, maybe your father's abusive, and so getting out of his house
or you don't
the actual better case, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not dumb. We're just saying this is an overarching theme.
General cultural.
This is a huge problem in our society.
Right.
And
well, yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of the stories that we're most like, whoa, or like shocked at are the ones where the dad is there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he could have said, no, you're not living in an apartment by yourself, 3 hours from me. You're just going to stay in my house.
You can take nursing classes at the community college down the road.
Stay in my house or whatever. Or it was, you need to break up with him now, and I'm going to go kick him out if you don't,
I'll break
or
up with
whatever.
him for you.
Yeah, or just something like, this is not good, and I don't approve. And I don't care what you say because I love you. You're not making good decisions right now.
Yep.
I love you. I'm going to go get this guy out of your life.
Yep.
Or whatever.
And if he steps foot on my property, he's going to end up with a bullet in his head, not the other way around,
Yeah, we're not going to play nice here.
Yep.
We understand there may be a situation where there is no father. Maybe he's passed away. Or like you said, he is the abusive guy, or he's not a Christian. You are a Christian,
and in those situations, hopefully the church is very present.
Right. That's the next best thing would be other strong men in your church, pastors, the elders. That should be a resource in every local church, is men who can step into family situations and help.
Yeah.
They don't need to do everything or whatever, but they should be there to help,
right,
in some way.
And in situations where, like, maybe you don't have any, like, a good father or brothers or anything like that in your life, if you have godly elders, right, then go to them, like, hey, I'm thinking about dating this guy. What do you think about him?
Yeah. Well,
what have you noticed about his character? What have you, is it okay if I bring him to dinner to your house so you can get to know him too?
Yeah.
Like,
community.
Yeah, like, be a part of the body, because that is actually safety.
Yeah.
Not just spiritual safety, like physical safety oftentimes.
Yeah. No, it's very good. Church community is valuable in a lot of ways, and that's something that should be taken advantage of.
Because men can manipulate a young, vulnerable woman, especially if she's like a single mom, or like something where she has other things that she's concerned about and she just wants a father for her child or something, right?
Well, can we say that women are typically more emotional too,
and
not as objective?
Right. But like, a man can fool that woman because she's desperate, or because she's so hopeful, or so excited, or whatever. Whereas he can't fool another dude.
Right.
Especially a dude who's already kind of got, like, the hairs in the back of his head on end. Like, when you kind of already get that feeling from someone, typically you're looking for, like, any reason to just be like, no, this guy's not good for you, so-and-so, Yeah, that's my 2 cents. But yeah, if you have ever paid attention to true crime at all, like, you don't even have to, you could be a novice, honestly, but you could probably think of several cases, even in your local community, where women have had shady stuff happen to them. Yeah. And, like, they're oftentimes the victim because it's, and then honestly, like, think about how the enemy works. He went to Eve.
Right.
This is just the MO of darkness.
Yeah.
They go after the weakest link. Satan goes after the weakest link, typically, and it is women, generally.
Right. Well, when, lions hunt their prey, they find the weak one of the herd, right? Yeah.
And women are the weaker vessel. So if you want to create massive damage, shatter the weaker vessel.
Another encouragement for you dads Not only to just always protect your daughters.
And your sons, too.
And your sons, too. But ensure that you are spending time training your girls up to be strong mentally and emotionally as well. They don't need to be cold, but discerning, so that they're sharp, so they don't just buy into any, did God really say? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, he did. Bye. Yeah. Train them to be sharp, train them to be quick like that.
Well, and of the two options, you'd rather have the Lord, when your daughter's 20, work out some of the coldness in her heart versus some of the naivete that lands her into trouble.
That's right.
Of the two, one has fewer consequences. So if you have to err on either side, I'd much rather have a daughter who's not nearly as impressed with men as much as she should be versus one who's overly impressed and is always the victim, Yeah,
because then she has emotional pain and hurt she might be dealing with the whole rest of her life. And she may have physical hurt and pain that she's going to endure because of that naivete. Yeah. Whereas the other one, she might just not get married till a little bit later or something. Another
thing that we'll wrap up here because we've kind of gone long. But for you who have young boys, this is something that we've done with our son since he was
this is
7. Yeah. We always tell him, don't be alone with a girl ever.
Yep.
You are not allowed to be alone with a girl.
Period.
Unless your sister's in the area with you or another one of your dude friends, don't ever be alone.
Right.
Because you can be accused of all kinds of things. And another thing that happens because of this whole Me Too movement and because of stupid laws is that you can get wrapped up into all kinds of trouble because
your word against hers.
It is, and they will always believe the woman over and above the man.
Right.
So don't ever be alone.
Period. There's no reason to.
There's no reason to.
Even as a young boy, another reason is that young boy needs to be around other boys. He needs to be roughhousing and shooting Nerf guns at each other.
Slapping each other in the back of the head.
And whatever. And then one-upping each other and being competitive boys.
Yeah.
He does not need to be trained on, how to change outfits on a Barbie.
Right.
Or whatever that girl...
and even our son is going to be 12 this year, but even as he gets older, now it's just a visual safety too, because you don't know what someone else is going to accuse you of.
Yep.
You and a girl walk out of, a fenced-in backyard and no one else is with you, and everyone's thinking, oh, what happened behind that fence? Or, you just don't know what people are going to say or think or whatever, so just, it's a safety for you.
It goes to the verse, right, avoid the appearance of evil.
And it's you are respecting the young women that you're around by doing so.
Right.
It's not because you think all women are tramps. It's because you want to protect their virtue as much as your own.
Right. You don't want people thinking ill of her character, especially when there's no reason to.
So we don't play hide and seek like that. We just don't. We've never done that with our kids. It's just not allowed.
It just invites questionable scenarios.
Yep.
Is what it does.
Exactly. So.
Also, a very clear line of boy-girl contact too. We've made where no, you do not wrestle, you do not roughhouse, right? Period. There's just
our son has never been allowed to wrestle with his sisters either.
Right.
That's never been allowed. He doesn't have a brother, so poor guy. He's just had you.
Right.
But there's no reason for it. You don't ever need to be rough with a girl.
You don't physically compete with girls, and you don't need to train to.
Nope.
Even if they think it's totally fun and
doesn't
awesome,
matter.
They shouldn't be thinking that it's totally fun
matter.
and awesome. Compete with me. Come try to beat me up, Eddie.
Yeah.
But that's a good training thing too, because then he will be a good patriarch.
Yep.
Protect your sisters.
Exactly.
You don't fight with them. You make sure they're protected and they're good.
And then when he grows up and he's in a situation where he is, 20 years old and he's in a group of Christian friends from church and he sees some loser being inappropriate with one of, his sisters in the faith or something, he's going to step in and say, no, you're not going to talk to my sister that way.
Right.
That's inappropriate. And if you lay hands on her one more time, you and I are going to meet in the parking lot.
Right.
If you make it out there, That's what we're training our son to be like as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
So,
awesome.
2 cents, deep weird. This wasn't really that weird.
But we're talking about true crime and like true crime,
one of my very favorite cases is the Mara Murray case. I find it fascinating.
It's a very fascinating case.
I think there's a disappeared episode, the Mara Murray disappearance.
There are tons of documentaries and shows that have covered it. There's a podcast of dozens and dozens of episodes that have covered every detail about it.
It's just one of the strangest cases because there's like 1,000 weird things that happened the week before she left.
Right.
And any of the
that are unexplained.
That are unexplained and don't seem to make sense. And any of those things.
And like one way or the other affects why she was doing what she did when she went missing. So it's like, okay, well, if it was this, then maybe she was doing this and that.
And
but
it
if it was
involves
this,
college life, the military, family drama, like
legal issues.
All kinds of crazy stuff. So that's really cool. If you like true crime, I would highly recommend looking into that one.
Yeah.
Relatively clean, too. There's nothing smutty in it.
Yeah, the story's not...
sometimes they can be kind of gross.
It's not like any kind of salacious story.
No. I mean, she was kind of promiscuous, but that isn't...
No, it's not like graphic. A huge highlight or anything.
No. What is your favorite true crime case?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, man. You should tell me if you know what I'm interested in.
I don't know.
That one's always fun. I don't know. Do you not know?
No, I don't.
You usually know more about me than I know about myself.
Do you have one that you just find super interesting besides the Mara Murray one?
Right.
Mara is Maura. Murray.
Right.
Mora. She's from the Boston area, so they got that thick Boston accent.
Yeah, her dad does. All that stuff. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, no.
Not one?
No.
Okay. Wow.
But if you started telling me stuff, maybe, I don't know.
I even got my grandma into true crime.
Oh, those are funny phone calls, you guys, listening to Erica
when the
and
Idaho college murders went down last fall, she and I were we were detectives, she and I, trying to come up with all kinds of things. Yeah. What's your favorite serial killer case? Like, what's your favorite of all? Like, what's the most interesting?
Bundy's is interesting, for sure. Like the other ones,
he actually hit up a college.
Yeah, is it Washington?
No, well,
he was all over
many colleges.
Washington.
But when he finally got caught, he was in Florida, and he was in a sorority house, and that was his final spree.
The other ones are kind of gross, or some people are hard to stomach, like Dahmer or Wayne Gacy.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the BTK one? That was still it's just, they're super dark.
They reopened the John Benet Ramsey case. Did you see that?
Yeah, that one actually is really interesting too.
Mm-hmm.
But not my favorite. We like watching stuff on that one too. There's a California one or a couple California ones.
There's lots of... I think California is the leading...
Ohio has a lot, too.
Yeah, but it's not the... Well, California is just bigger, so that's
probably true, too.
That's why. One of my favorite, speaking of Ohio, true crime cases is the Amy Mihaljevic case in Ohio.
Is that the kid?
It's a little girl. That one is fascinating.
Is she the one taken from the little strip mall?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. That one is just another case of, children being left alone, no one watching her, a little girl... Yeah, just so sad. But anyway, if you like true crime, like we said, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to that is my every week podcast is True Crime Garage.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to listen to dozens of true crime, and I have...
They're not Christians.
They're not Christians. But
it's listenable, though.
In true crime, someone needs to start a true crime podcast.
We had friends that thought about doing it.
That's Christian.
I know.
Comes from the cases, from God's law. That would be great.
Well, it just tells the story without
Maybe we should do that,
swearing.
Dave. Maybe we should just
I guess Theologians does it a little bit.
They kind of do, but they don't really get into
there.
the details. We should actually do a legit series on true crime cases from God's law.
I'm here for it.
We might lose most of our listeners, but
no, we have to start a new channel. We'll just start a new channel.
Anyway, but True Crime Garage is great. They're mostly clean. They might have a little bit of language here or there, but they I can turn that one on and my kids can listen to it because they're very edited, generally speaking.
Yeah, they're very polished.
They don't get into politics often because there's a lot of podcasts that will take it from you know, Me Too perspective, feminist, whatever.
They can't help but
and
preach.
I just can't bear those in my soul. Yeah.
No, they don't do that. They don't preach, which is good.
Yeah. And there are a couple other ones too, but that one's my favorite.
Cool. Well, I hope you found this interesting, everybody. But it's something that we've talked about all the time, just about the patriarchy dynamic and how it's seen, or the lack of patriarchy seen in the effects of a lot of true crime cases.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting.
Yeah, it does shape how you
you
parent and how you do family, how you host, how you do everything. When you look at the world, and it's not that like I sit around fearful. Like actually, I think listening to true crime, this might be sick in the head, but like it's like calming. But it's only because like I understand how dark the world is.
Yeah.
But I also feel like when you know who your enemy is, it's way easier to like fight against it versus like living in this naive.
True.
You know, where I think I live in a small town, I think bad can never happen to me.
Right, you're not in the world.
Statistically speaking, most things do happen in small towns.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But you're not living in the world with rose-colored glasses. Like nothing ever bad could happen to me or in this town.
No, you know, like actually, the odds are pretty good.
Could. So just be aware and be vigilant all the time.
Fun fact: my dad was babysat by Ed Gein, and my grandparents still live in Plainfield, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's why Grandma
got my fascination with true crime came from at a very young age. Yeah.
You and your cousin would.
We would do ghost hunting too.
Yeah.
When I was young.
Maybe that's why Grandma got interested, because she's still in Plainfield.
Maybe.
That's awesome. The other thing I was going to say is, true crime helps you see, actually, whether they realize they're doing this or not, how fundamental the family is to society. We try.
And how good God's law is, actually.
Our culture right now, our culture right now is basically trying to make the state the foundation for our society. But you can't do that. It's falling apart.
It is, actually.
But true crime right there shows you how much strength a solid family provides in a society. So that's another cool thing as we watch it.
Yeah. When you listen and see all these cases and they finally find the perpetrator, and in the end, the judge comes out with a sentence, and it's like 12 years for murdering 10 people. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? And this, and yet we think God of the Old Testament is so cruel and mean. And you're like, but this is the justice that our system offers the victims' families. Well, it's not justice at all.
There's a lot of cases, too, that are purely circumstantial.
That's true.
And we're like, there's not 2 or 3 witnesses here.
Yeah, even though you might think, and it might seem that someone is guilty. And sometimes you just feel like in your gut, like, I know we know this person's guilty, but there's no tangible evidence for it.
Right. Can't convict him.
Yeah.
That's wrong to convict that person.
Yeah.
For just purely circumstantial.
See, we need to do this podcast. We could really, that'd be so good.
Let's do it.
If you're interested in that at all.
Yeah, let us know if you'd be interested in a reformed reset.
We could actually get into the details of these cases and not just do like a
overview kind of thing. But we could apply all of this stuff, a Christian worldview, to true crime.
Yeah.
That might be a lot of fun. Let us know, guys. Yeah. All right. We're done. We're done for this one. Thanks for listening, guys. Subscribe, hit like, do all that stuff. Share with your friends. We appreciate it. And until next time, take hold and reorder creation by first reforming your home. This has been the Reformed Reset.
But on the basis of grace and on the finished work of Jesus Christ, the project is back in force, and the destiny of a new transformed world is assured.
I just put the sourdough in the oven too, so I've got like 40 minutes.